Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another Final Fantasy Randomizer community presentation on SpeedGaming. Tonight, the spring tournament continues with a pod matchup in Pod Pede between Chadbert and robdraven. At 2-0, Rob already has a spot on the round of 64, but Chadbert is looking to secure the place with a win tonight. I'm RockSolid84, joined in the booth by Cheesinator, and Cheese, isn't this your pod?
It is, in fact, and I'm super excited to be calming the last matchup within it that is not one of my own. These are two fine competitors that I've played previously. We've had some very competitive matchups, and pod races will continue to be as close as they can.
Yeah, and just a little bit of intelligence before we get going with this race. We are dealing with a couple of notable blurses this time around. The black belt with ninja spells is going to be casting spells early on, and you can see that both runners have gone with a black belt. On the right, robdraven is going with a heavy black magic party, and on the left, his opponent is going to be taking a fighter for that extra bit of strength.
Yeah, the party choices here, left is basically flexibility, right is, I guess, a more straight ahead game plan, but also safety within that. That white mage being possibly the only class that will learn a life spell could be critical if Topher is just full of things that wipe the floor with black mages.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of the white mage, and it's got some access to things. For example, exit is something that can be helpful, and sometimes you don't get that if you're running with a red mage. Also, just the black belt Oreo composition in general is really powerful because you get all that magic, and you also get pretty good running with those two black mages.
Mm-hmm. The other small advantage some of these classes have is there's a lot of HP boost on the mages, but we don't have too much time to cover that because they are off and into the magic shop. So what do we got today?
Okay, so Fade rolling in slot 3 on the white magic is going to be red mage learnable. Not as big of a deal because we have Ice 3 anyways, but that's still really nice. That's one of the best possible damage magics to have access to since it's non-elemental.
Yeah, Fade level 1, and it was red learnable. So even though these parties were open, they've both got no reason to reroll. They've both got a character that can learn Fade. Really great spot for that to land.
Yeah, if you're robdraven, do you think about maybe re-rolling to a red simply because you know you've got that Fade in life right there?
I mean, the other consideration is that if these runners feel like they're very, very evenly matched, which he may, giving up the 30-45 seconds to go through the character screen again and get a new party is just sometimes not a stress people want to deal with.
Yeah, I can get behind that. Definitely stick with the party you're comfortable with, and don't waste a bunch of time re-rolling. Chadbert finding a house in that first ordeal's chest. Let's see what's in the top 2.
Which we will see once we get past these unfortunate bones. They both pull exactly three bones, and they have blizzards, so oops. But they both saved outside. How convenient. That's just a heads up move. You start to learn that if it's in your game plan to be clearing these 3 chests in Temple of Fiends, which aren't required, there can't be any key items in here in these flags, but if you want to do them, you really should have that backup save.
Yeah, and Chadbert picking up some extra money on those top left. They both are going to go into Provoca with enough money to buy all the spells they need, so that's worth the time right there.
Yeah, looking ahead, we don't know what kind of tiles there will be yet. Specifically, that's the forced encounter tiles, which are I'll get to in a bit. We've got the Chime coming off the King, and Sarah gives us Oxyel. So 2 key items right away that once we break out of the Inner Sea actually already give us access to some dungeons. But getting back to those tiles, we have a tri-state flag, which we don't know if it's going to be one value or the other before the seed is rolled. We only know once we examine within game. And that tri-state is what kind of encounters are going to be on the spike tiles today. It could be a set that looks more like the vanilla but shuffled, or it could be a more strange esoteric set that's the B-side that's not necessarily vanilla encounters. And what Ice 3 or other black sweepers for that black belt could do on those respective sets, very different in terms of XP gains.
Yeah, and whether or not we get A-side or B-side tiles is pretty important. It's going to make a difference with these two party compositions that these runners have gone with. Chadbert on the left does have a fighter, which means that if Chadbert finds some good items early on, isn't going to be dependent on finding that grind. Whereas Rob on the right, well, he's got to find a grind in order to get his black belt up to levels high enough to do the kind of damage that is needed to round out the game.
Yep. Some kind of okay stuff in Matoya. It depends on how much that piece of opal gear sells for. People are making this Matoya run early in the game just for the chance at maybe a couple $1,000 in cash, with the upside of maybe even nicer gear than that. But really, it's a speed up to the early game to have some cash in your pockets before you hit the first few towns.
Yeah, and everybody's a little bit different in terms of their comfort level with these different checks. Now, if it's me and I've already got that 3,000 from Topher, I'm probably not going to check this right off the bat, but do want to shout out, first of all, yeah, that Opal Bonk might sell for a few thousand, but look at those mad ponies with poison on the overworld.
Oh yeah. Actually, I want to see as many of these bad skills as we can stacked up onto the early overworld, because frankly, this is... A, we'll be past it soon, and B, you can always just make your way past it with tents and cabins and so forth. Get the stuff out on the enemies that don't appear in any dungeons. Mad Ponies, that's perfect.
Yeah, Mad Ponies are great because they only show up in this very limited area of the map early on. Once you get the ship, you never see them again. Wolves, on the other hand, they come back in a few different dungeons, so it could be annoying to run across them on your way to the Ruby or on your way to the Marsh Cave. They're sort of all over the place.
Mm-hmm. All right, and level two black it's not a total dud. It's going to depend on the charges that the black belt is allowed. I think they might be getting the 4-4-4-4 that a ninja does with this blessing, but I actually haven't recently played with it, so I'm not sure. So that could be 4 free sabers without needing to find the incentive power gauntlet.
Yeah, it doesn't really replace the power gauntlet, but with the black belt, you're usually not worried about getting your damage levels up that high. So it's interesting, but I think more notable that we don't have something better like a warp or a nuke.
Yep, and Bicky giving a vanilla ship, so that's parked right outside. That's going to make inner sea traversal very smooth, given that we started with a free incentive canoe. The last piece of sort of guaranteed inner sea progression that we're going to be looking for is a canal, which will get us out to many more dungeons. But for now, we have easy access to marsh, ice, and some other places between there.
Yeah, from here, a next check that you'll often see is going to Crescent from the Inner Sea, which it looks like robdraven is about to do. If it's nothing, you can just reset back out to the entrance of that river.
Yep, we've got this check, marsh and ice, and given that there were no fetch quests given to us off the King or Sarah, the last potential thing we could find at either Elfland or Crescent is the vendor item, which we're past the 2 towns where the vendor item will be guaranteed to be cheaper, so now it could be any price all the way up to max here. So we'll see if Crescent has it. Nope, just Piers, cabins, and houses.
Yeah, cheap houses, though, are pretty notable. Let's hope that Rob picks some of those up before he leaves. Interestingly, though, they've got some money. The Opal Bonk selling for about 5,500.
Mm-hmm. And Pro Ring's available. There's our Fast. Fast is in a red promotion learnable slot if for whatever reason Chad decides to neglect his Black Mage and just wants to level the red. Yeah, Pro Rings were like 72 or 7,400 here in Crescent, so that's a pretty reasonable price. Bottle off the Sages. So that's actually a dud early. Anything that not only does nothing in the Inner Sea, but doesn't do anything until you get the airship is... it's just experience early. We have 5% extra scaling per key item on experience and gold.
Yeah, so let's see if this is going to make a difference. Chadbert making the decision not to go to the Circle of Sages early on, instead go straight for Marsh, and that's an interesting play given that we don't have access to War.
Yeah. So the one thing I think is in Chadbert's strength here is the fighter is leading the way with an iron armor that was picked up in Matoya. So you have someone tanky up front. At the very least, you're not super worried about physical attacks from enemy monsters as much, but we don't have any elemental protection yet, so it's luck of the draw if we're going to run into, say, Blizzard Bones. And fortunately, Chadbert got initiative on that last one, doesn't this time, so going to have to take this fight seriously and dump in as many sweepers as possible. Gets turn order with the fighter, no bonus cast Blizzard yet, and this Fade should take care of them.
Yeah, and this is why you got to be careful with that early Marsh. There's a lot of different variety in terms of the enemies that you can encounter in here. There's a lot of different formations that have 3 different enemy types on them. So there is a high chance that you'll run into some of those nasty skills, as Chadbert finds nothing in the top and goes straight for the bottom of Marsh.
Yep. Rob decided to take fight, just I think a fight or two here outside of Crescent, and really paid off because with the black belt down, got the mages up to level 8. So now all of robdraven's mages have charges up through level 4 magic, but not making the play immediately over to Elfland. Chadbert picking up a dragon -1 sword and a link chest on his way down to the bottom of Marsh. Rob is actually making a play to, I think, Volcano. Usually when someone just jets off like this, without much further ado, they're looking for the Volcano spike tile or cash or gear play, because I don't think I'd feel super prepared for ice not having been to Elfland yet. But he's saving at the fork in the road. Which way do we go? We're going right. Okay, so both our runners playing very aggressively. Chadbert rewarded with a max gold chest in the bottom of Marsh. That could be really significant.
Yeah, max. Every single possible gold piece you can get in a chest, Chadbert just got right there. So that was a huge haul. And robdraven on the right, making a very gutsy play for an early ice without warp, without much in terms of spells, just a fade, really. And life casts, you can do it. Rob's got houses, so we can grind a little bit in the top if we have to. Yeah, real gutsy, though, especially without a Fire 3.
Okay, so Chadbert has the guaranteed progression, the one that was going to be somewhere around here and will get us to other dungeons. Now, the best upside here for Rob is going to be the floater, which would just completely separate the 2 paths these runners will ever be on in this seed. But failing that, maybe some kind of inner sea fetch quest that allows Rob to accrue a little bit of experience, and gold scaling before he sets off to grind the black belt is the next best option. Worst thing in here would be something like a white shirt, I think, for Rob.
Yeah, the white shirt's not going to be super helpful, especially when you've already got a dedicated Invis 2 caster. Chat pointing out that we're dealing with A-side trap tiles, so that's going to be something that benefits Chadbert on the left, because it's going to be harder for robdraven to get the black belt up to those truly silly levels.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the A-side has a lot of safe but slower grinds, so you're less likely to wipe on a tile, but you're also less likely to find grinds that are good for a whole team of light warriors, but there are a lot that are just one enemy that a black belt can easily take from quite a low level.
Yeah, so robdraven now deep into ice, hasn't faced a lot of adversity yet. To be down here at 11 minutes and a half is very early on. We're going to see another trap tile here, and this one is okay. Given where it is, I don't think we're going to see robdraven stop and grind, but you could take this up to the teens if you wanted to.
Yeah, I mean, it's the old Hall of Giants, right? It was a vanilla strategy to fight the, oh my god, Bane Iguanas. Now I want nothing to do with this. I want to go. Speaking of going, Chadbert did make it out of Blizzard Bone Marsh successfully and saved, so Chadbert has that canal secured.
Yeah, well, so Chadbert's early play paying off in spades. He's already able to get out of here. Won't be surprised if he goes. Starts to think a little bit about Crescent, but decides to go the other way around, and that sort of makes sense. robdraven finding a Vorpal +5 and a bunch of gold in ice. This is a seed with a lot of gold.
Yes, and that Vorpal +5 is also itself going to be a lot of gold because robdraven has no one that can equip it. You sometimes get a blessing where some random class can equip a Vorpal pre-promo. Don't think we have one of those today. But Vorpal +5, if I saw that and I could get a hold of Tail without too much difficulty on Chadbert's side, I mean, that's a game-winning sword. Like, I would not be super incentivized to grind a black belt if I had a knight and a Vorpal +5.
No, I mean, Vorpal Sword, it's got its fans and it's got its detractors, but at +5, it is a serviceable endgame weapon. Chadbert sees gold +4s. They sell for a fair bit in Melman, but they are there, so that's endgame armor, pretty much. We've really got a lot of tools now. It's starting to look pretty good for that fighter.
Yep, and it's going to be probably one of the later Elflins you'll see on, especially with both runners having the option to have been here, but we're going to finally see the Elflin magic at 13 minutes, and this is important. Okay, so black mages, red mages, and black belts get temper and warp at level 3. I love going here before either of those two dungeons, specifically because you can get warp here. So while Chadbert won't have it for Marsh, he will if he wants to take it into that's funny. I'll get to that in a second. He'll have it if he wants to go to Ice Cave, Waterfall Ordeals. robdraven just picked up the Salmon. I'm gonna guess that's not an instrument, but you could fool me for sure. There are two flags that can rename key items in this randomizer. One of them renames the lute to another musical instrument, and the other one renames the ruby to some kind of food that the Titan might be hungry for.
Yeah, so as Jat's pointing out in chat, we have picked up the ruby. Notably in White Magic and Elfland, we did have Invis 2 and Wall, with I think it was Wall in 3 and Invis 2 and 4. So if I'm not mistaken, the Red Mage is not going to be able to learn, I think, either of those.
Yeah, that's a good point. Last important magic checks here really for the red. Oh man, reds get Cure 3 life 2 at 4. That's so clutch. And then lit 3, super respectable, and lock late game utilities. So yeah, really like these first 4 levels of magic. The only things we missed on are like fast and nuke, basically.
Yeah, and with all the other stuff we have, we don't really need those. We've already got Fade, which is our non-elemental sweeper, and we've got Temper at a low level. So, I mean, fast is great, but we don't really need it.
Yeah, Temper, low level with each player in this race actually having 3 black casters means that they can be triple tempering someone. But if it's in the case of robdraven, maybe it would be 2 tempers onto the black belt who would be swinging instead of tempering itself. robdraven has no white mage left and is getting punched out by these wizards. He might not make it out alive. He decided to go in for some extra chest checks after already having the quote-unquote ruby in hand. So let's hope that these last ones here involve no drama. A bunch of rolled down silver helmets and 3,000 gold, and Rob is safe. Okay.
Yeah, so Rob getting through Ice Cave without much difficulty. Both of these runners catching some pretty good luck, I dare say, and getting through those dungeons early on without a whole lot of magic in both cases. Chadbert taking advantage of that low-level warp and doing ordeals before you normally would. I like this play because you get a lot of boxes and you can get some experience too taking some of these encounters.
And a Thor hammer picked up on a spike tile there is just a handy thing. More important in this seed for the fighter than the black belt because of course black belt having black magic. That casts lit 2 and it's useful in Sea Shrine. It's useful if you want to solo grind like a bunch of Perilous and cockatrices or something. There's one spike tile that can feature those birds.
Yeah, so
Don't know if you had a thought there, but you're cut out, so I'll just update our progress here. robdraven's taking his pile of cash to Crescent and is buying pro rings. Very advisable. They're cheap, they're important. They've got 9 absorb and they protect from death element, which will stop toxic, rub, squint, quadex, maybe some other things I'm not thinking of right now. Excal +4. So Chad, not even having been to the Ice Cave, secures an endgame weapon for a knight. Just needs a tail and a floater.
Yeah, sorry about that. Some technical difficulties there. But that Excal +4 is absolutely huge for Chadbert, as is finding the Mystic Key early on. That's a great item. It gives you access to a free check in Corneria and a couple of rooms that have trap tiles. So it's really important to get that early, and Chadbert's got it.
Yep. Each of the items Chadbert and robdraven respectively got in the different dungeons they went to, or at least, sorry, between Ice and Ordeals, not Marsh. Rob's got this fetch quest, the Ruby, that'll send you out to Sarda, and there are 4 chests along the way. Key is a lot more powerful, as it also leads to a key item in the Canary key locks, but there's like 20 chests or something that you can suddenly open once you have access to it. Now, on Chadbert's side, hello, how are you today? Does anyone have any Agam effects?
Yeah, so this is for anybody who's newer to the game. When you find an Agama on a trap tile like this, you're pretty happy because this is a pretty easy way to get levels. Now, it's more important for robdraven rocking that black belt than it is for Chadbert, who's probably already thinking that we're going fighter strats and basically keeping the black belt around as a meat shield and a black caster.
Yeah, I actually like Chadbert's decision here. You're in tight competition, and you've got early signs that the knight, or fighter, but hopefully knight, will be competitive on its own without a standing grind, without tons of extra help. You do need to see a little bit more gear, I think, to be super happy, but that promoted knight is going to have access to, pretty sure, life right at level 1. So we already have the pieces to make this a knight-friendly seed. We just need to see a tail and the floater. We have had a number of quote-unquote floaterless seeds in this tournament. Now, floater is always going to be available. The question is it going to be convenient, or will it be in Sky after, say, the runners are already in Go mode?
Yeah, so robdraven going through the Volcano Armory and finding a couple of important things. Number 1, Ice Shield is pretty good shield for that fighter that Chadbert's got. More importantly, though, we've got 2 zombie dragons on a trap tile. This is maybe one of the best A-side encounters you can possibly find.
Yep, we've now seen the solo Agama, we've seen the 1-2 zombie Ds, both very grindable. Chadbert answers a question we were just talking about. Finding a tail and a ribbon, those are 2 pieces of the puzzle, because unfortunately the fighter's 3 MDef per level just really doesn't cut it compared to the black belt's 4. So you still want to see that ribbon with a fighter party, even if you grind it up to a pretty high level. So yeah, each runner is finding a piece of their respective game plans. Rob finding grinds, Chadbert finding the gear and the tail.
Yeah, and if that's not enough, we also get a dragon armor just over right there next to the ribbon and the tail. It did roll down -3, but that doesn't matter. The main thing about the dragon armor, besides its high base absorb, is the immunities that it gives you. Now, with the ribbon, you've already got most of that covered, but what you can do is you can put the dragon armor on the fighter and the ribbon on your white mage or backup life caster, in this case, red mage, and that way you've kind of got a lot of insurance.
Mm-hmm. Chadbert, taking a peek at these spike tiles in Northwest Castle, I think this is more about the fact that they're right there and they're basically free checks. You still do want to get somewhere into your teens before you're confident like diving the dungeons that you need to win the game. Also, I think Chad was deliberately trying to kill off the black belt, however, might have bit off more than he can chew here on the seafood platter.
Yeah, the seafood party pack, no joke, for the early level light warriors. Now this is interesting though. robdraven just taking it right past the Volcano Armory, does not stop the check, doesn't see that ribbon, and doesn't see that very nice grind. So, some runners will come back after taking on carry, but I don't know if robdraven has got the means to do that right now.
You've got Fade, which with 4 or 5 casts can get most of the way through Carrie's HP. You do need extra help beyond that. I don't think Ice 3 is gonna cut it though. Rob has not been to Elfland is the thing, so he can't temper up this like level 11 black belt. Gutsy call. I'm just going to say both runners have been playing aggressively. Rob really wants that 3-0, and if he gets through carry now, I think that's just a time advantage because of the efficiency of the play compared to, double dipping Volcano or coming back later.
Yeah, well, I feel like this is a rewind to last night because this is a gutsy carry play, and I'm a little bit worried. I do want to point out we saw Katana +4 up there in one of the Agama chests. Where's my Ninja Lovers at? Unfortunately, we don't have any teams this time around. But let's see how robdraven does against Carry as Carry whacks one of the Black Mages down.
Yeah, unfortunately, the Fade caster going down after only releasing one Fade, I think this is doomed. We did have Saber on the black belt, but didn't put him in the very back. So this carry has to switch to scripts and be very tame otherwise. Has some kind of touch. I think it's just poison touch, and it doesn't matter. Rob wipes out a Volcano. Don't know if he saved the progress in the top before the dive attempt. With the HP totals here, I think he did, because if you look, these are about the same health values he had going into the fight, at least max health values.
Yeah, but robdraven turning around without seeing that all-important armory check, this could be pretty important in terms of determining how this race goes. Let's take a look back to Chadbert's side. Chadbert is actually taking the Sifu party pack and appears to be doing a little bit of a full party grind here.
Yeah, I'm into it. I think the black belt may be staying alive just because it's a caster and it's making this overall just faster. I don't know what Chadbert's plan is for getting value out of that black belt. Is it just another black mage that you'll be using in the late game and you're fine with it being in the teens, getting a few charges, or does he have bigger ambitions for it? Because we've been talking up the potential of the knight, but we don't know what Chadbert's decided.
We don't, but if Chadbert is thinking about keeping that black belt around as a backup caster, that's a fantastic move. It's basically going to be a black mage with much better health and much better magic defense, so it's really nice to have that around.
So robdraven now onto the Elflin check, is getting Temper, Warp, all the essentials. We know that there will be a Life 2 and so forth coming up here at the level 4 White Magic Shop, Wall, and Invis 2. Really, a lot of the stuff that you would have wanted for a carry fight, unfortunately, now Rob is seeing for the first time. So he's had a setback, I think, but the early game doesn't determine everything in a seed. There's still the route to be played out of which dungeons do they choose to dive. Are people full clearing sea or sky, something like that? Where's the vendor item? Chadbert's off to check the Oasis here and ask what Mr. Underhill has. And nothing.
Yeah, nothing other than some tents. Those are nice to find sometimes, but Chadbert taking the reset already has enough save items. We find the vendor item. It's the herb. That's great to have. It's kind of annoying that we've got another one of these items that's sending you back up to the inner sea. It feels like Chadbert keeps coming down here and keeps heading straight back, but does buy that herb and is going to have to think about whether or not wants to do the sea shrine early. Looks like saving and taking off, or maybe just going waterfall first.
Yeah, I think you make waterfall, make the waterfall play before any other decisions are made. You kind of assess your levels and you say, am I comfortable now going through potentially all of Sea Shrine, through Kraken, looking for the sea key item, if that's something that you even wanted to clear for. If you get Cube in Waterfall, you might be thinking, okay, well now sea and sky are sort of equally valid choices. So there's decisions that can be made more accurately when you have more information available. So Chad's off to get the item in Waterfall.
Yeah, if I'm Chadbert and I end up getting the cube and it's basically a toss-up between sea and sky, I'm going to full clear sea. First of all, it's where I'm at already. And secondly, there are fewer chests. There's a fewer number of chests in sea. So you're percentage-wise, with this flag that can roll the incentive item in any random location, you're more likely to find it earlier in sea than you are to find it earlier in sky.
Yep. Rob is comparing the relative values here of the silver -3 bracelet and the copper bracelet. I guess it'd be a good moment to just talk about how our blessings and curses work. Blessed armor, if it's a body armor, it loses or gains 2 absorb per point, and also evade values, but evade not as important. If it's not a body armor, it's 1 per point. Chadbert picking up the adamant from the robot and waterfall. Weapons for this flag, the pluses give you 3 crit rate, 3 hit percent, and 2 attack power. Minuses take those away. So yeah, the silver -3s for Rob are only 9 absorb, but it still beats the copper bracelets by 5.
Yeah, that's a good point, breaking it down between those 2 different types of armor. Chadbert now has 2 items that are back up in the northern area. Is going to go down to sea, but I wouldn't be surprised if he just go-mows it and takes out Kraken and gambles on one of those 2 northern items being something that gets us progression rather than get the item in sea, unless we're committed to just getting everything. The reason why I wouldn't do that is that I'd be afraid it might be the ruby and I might end up picking up the floater somewhere else, and it's just wasted time.
Yeah, I think you haven't been to enough dungeons yet to be skipping anything. Also, this randomizer doesn't have... You can't make the same degree of like skipping plays that you can in maybe something that's got a pool of 20 items where 6 are required, or 25 items where 6 are required. Like there's about 12 really things, 12 to 14 that you're looking for, and almost half of those are required. It would be too big of a gamble, I think, to not full clear C until you find its key item.
Okay, well, Chadbert seems to be agreeing with you, at least as far as let's do a quasi-full clear on the way to Kraken. We'll have to see what decision Chadbert makes if he ends up getting all the way through Kraken, still doesn't have the item, and has to go back to Mermaids to get it. That's going to be another decision point for Chadbert.
Rob Draven catching up on the Marsh check now is going to be rewarded with his canal once he gets down to the bottom here. He'll also be rewarded with the max gold chest, but that's, I think, long past relevancy given that he's already bought just about everything he needs besides the vendor item, and the vendor item was only 30k.
Yeah, I'm trying to think about if there was anything else that was relevant down here. I don't think we had. Certainly didn't have any ribbons and didn't see the opal bracelet, maybe a pro cape. But yeah, there's not a whole lot of value down here.
So Chadbert taking on a fight. Now, this is another good time to point out one of our unique flags of the tournament. All encounters that are not required bosses are runnable, whereas in previous iterations of the randomizer, there would still be usually some shuffled unrunnables, and you'd take the encounters that normally could not be run from, mix those up, and that Sahag pack was actually, it used to always be unrunnable, so it's just nice to be able to see that one and have the option to take it or not, because it can be a slog of a fight if you encounter it too much in Sea Shrine.
Yeah, I feel like it kind of went through stages in the randomizer. There was that early on where the Sahags were always unrunnable, nobody could ever do anything about that. And then there was a point for a while where the unrunnable enemy could get randomized around, but there always had to be unrunnable enemies. Now we've got just the option for, hey, let's just make everything runnable except for the bosses and Topher.
Yep. All right, so Chadbert is on the left side here. The sort of aggressive meta play that give you the best chance for just a one and done Sea Shrine is to go left side first, clear all the chests. If your key item is here, you get Kraken. If you get Kraken on clearing the dungeon, but specifically if you kill Kraken, then you'll be out with no need to dive back in. But if it's on Mermaid's side, of course, we're coming back. There's not too much advantage to Mermaids first, unless you really need either an extra walking grind or you don't feel comfortable with your gear before proceeding to the left side.
Yeah, you said it. So Rob Draven finding exit at level 5, that's helpful to have. Not so important when we've got a low level warp as we did, but in some cases that can be a game changer. Chadbert, however, continuing to dig the Sea Shrine and not checking the trap tiles, so doesn't feel like he needs a grind, and I understand that with this party. You're probably going to have almost all the levels you need just playing the game.
Yep. And robdraven now finally giving us a look at this ruby. We pulled this out of Ice Cave a long time ago. This salmon, nom nom nom. We'll see Sarda here in a moment. It was pointed out in chat, a conjecture that if this is the floater, robdraven is I think closer with Chadbert or possibly ahead. I don't feel like at this point in the game this would count as sort of an early floater, nor a floater that like vastly changes the trajectory of the seed, just because Chadbert has made solid progress on all fronts otherwise, while Rob's been set back a little bit. But I think floater right here would get Rob right back into the thick of things.
Yeah, I pretty much agree with your breakdown. You hit it pretty much 100%. We're going to see it right now. I do want to say, as he picks up a vanilla rod, I do want to say Chadbert did get an Aegis +4 shield in that Sharknado Better Trap Treasure chest. Wow. So that's pretty nice. Chadbert thinking about a room that doesn't have a chest in it. But yeah, that fighter is going to be really well geared.
Quick question in chat here. Jamie Fry 22 asking how they can change their sprites in game. Runners that have modified sprites have either applied a pre-made patch to their ROM, like in the case of the Valkyries of Light, which Chadbert is using, or they've just done custom manipulation in the FFHackster utility, which you can find on romhacking.net. Yeah, for the tournament, we just have a couple of restrictions around sprites. If you, robdraven getting the business from those schools, and Chadbert's about to pull Kraken here, so I'll perhaps chat to you directly later about what you can do with your sprites. Okay, so what's our plan here? We are going with a lot of evasion strategy. I like that. Saber on the black belt. So Chadbert putting faith into the black belt as a physical damage dealer, and the fighter is just going to be up top tanking, while the red mage I think is just going to keep invising the party. Yeah. In fact, invis 1, so just directly onto the black belt, putting all of our eggs in that particular basket. I think the only way this goes south is if a particularly nasty script comes out from Kraken, something like slow, hold, anything of those Fiend 1 pool things that could disable our black belt. But it's ramping up. It's got a good number of evasion stacks already, doing 257 damage. That'll chew through Kraken 1 in another 3 to 4 punches, I think. Ooh, that was a good punch. 4 for 444. Lit 2 doesn't do too much damage. Yeah, I think this Kraken is not long for the world here.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. It's pretty much all over but the cry, and as Kraken goes down, I want to point out that we've got a bit of a slideshow, but I'm pretty sure I saw an eye grind on robdraven's side in Earth, but robdraven did not stick around for it. So I'm wondering if it's because the eye had something nasty, or if Rob is just thinking, well, I don't need to do this right now.
His party was half dead. He had lost his black belt and white mage to the ghouls on the overworld there, walking back from Sarda. It's a super nice grind, though. I think he's going to revive and head right back. It's 35 minutes into the seed. If you've got sort of an internal clock around when you need to grind your black belt, this is the time. I usually don't like to be starting a grind past about the 30 to 35 minute mark in typical FFR seeds. So if Rob has a similar clock, he's going to know. Well, the black belt being 1 HP here, not the greatest, but the Kaizoku's thankfully all missed. He's going to heal up now and get some HP back for his members. Chadbert got the true final boss right after. Oh no, never mind. This is already in right side. See, he's encountering some ghosts. I was a little worried because Chadbert's party was half dead, but he looks to have switched into the black belt full time. The ghosts are going to make that kind of a difficult plan though for now. This is not the side of the dungeon that you want to be grinding anything on. I think you just need to kill the ghosts and get going to find your key item.
Yeah, so interesting that Chadbert is trying to concentrate some levels on that black belt. Maybe just thinking that with gear, it's not as important to get the fighter up as high. I would say that this is a little bit dangerous though, because you have to know who your damage dealer is. And maybe Chadbert does know. Maybe Chadbert is just thinking, okay, well, it's going to be my black belt, bar none. But with all this fantastic experience and with A-side tiles, Chadbert hasn't seen the eye grind yet. I don't know why he wouldn't continue to focus on the fighter, but it could just be personal choice.
Yeah, personal preference. There's a feeling, I think, that the black belt is the safer pick, and in kind of at the 100-foot level, like looking down, maybe the 1,000 feet level. I'm trying to talk about getting a perspective, but the metaphor is not coming. Black belt is safer in that a black belt with levels more likely to complete Topher in one try than a fighter, but the safety is relative, and if you come across a lot of the essential gear and magic for a knight early, and it's got life, that's to me something that also screams safety for Topher. So yeah, Chad is doing this with the information that he's been given, so we'll see where it goes. robdraven committing to the grind now, and on the eye, Chadbert gets a power gauntlet off the fetch quest from the vendor in Onrak. C had the cube right side. Still need the rod, which we know robdraven has, and the loot before Chad is in go mode. Now, speaking of that go mode, where the floater lands is something that can determine if you want to invest in a member that requires promotion like that knight.
Right. Well, I think we've nailed it now. Floater has to be in Sky. There's no other possibility because all of the other items are behind a floater lock.
That's a good point. I guess we have no other outstanding fetch. Oh no, wait. We have Chadbert is here in dwarves. There is the potential for something, and TNT. Okay, well, lazy dwarves. Because with Rod being available, if there's a loot here and floaters in Sky, you could get a pre-Sky go mode. This is the floater though, so Chadbert, his routing is ultimately what pays off, and he'll be the first in the air here in a couple of minutes.
Okay, so Chadbert finding that all-important floater, continuing through to check the armory. I guess it makes sense from the perspective that you could always pull out the defense sword or the ribbon, but I'm starting to think if it's 39 minutes, we've really got all the gear we need. I mean, that X-Cal +4 is fantastic. So is all of the defensive gear we've got for the fighter. So is the ribbon that we've got, and we've got access to wall, we've got access to life, and we've got so much great stuff. But it's going to be about what you're comfortable with, and those chests are so fast, I do understand the check.
Yep. So with a floater in hand, Chadbert's going to be able to knock out a bunch of the post-floater checks. For him, that'll mean Sarda because he doesn't have that ruby, so he gets to skip Ice Cave theoretically. That'll give him a rod. If the bottle, sorry, not the bottle. We have. Oh, robdraven has a bottle. Chadbert has neither the slab nor bottle, so actually pending yet on those post-floater checks. But if Sky has a piece of gear, ultimately, or a fetch quest that leads to a piece of gear, Chadbert could avoid full clearing it completely just by making his overworld checks.
Yeah, well, he's probably going to check. It looks like maybe he hasn't seen the Sages yet. The other thing would be the Sarda check, which does have the rod. And that's going to put Chadbert in go mode because he's got the key, he's got the... Oh, no, he doesn't have...
No, we need the loot, yeah.
That's the thing.
Loot is MIA for both runners. And you're right, the bottle was here at the Sages, which Chad is surprisingly seeing for the first time at 40 minutes. I think if, for example, Sages had been floater, like you would just be kicking yourself getting here this late, but it's fine. Chad ultimately was the first to the floater. He gave the Hooray Dwarf a little hooray right afterwards. So getting this bottle, that gives him one quick check. You just go wrap around the map, go to Gaia. If that turns into the loot directly or a fetch quest leading to the loot, then Chadbert would be in go mode post Sarda.
Yeah, now I like this, seeing fast at level 6, but more importantly, Chadbert is equipping his fighter with the power gauntlet and with other items, which does suggest that Chadbert has not given up on that fighter. Very happy about that. It's going to be really nice to have that fighter as a huge tank and potentially your main damage dealer in endgame.
Yep, because right now, what's always going to be missing from the equation for Chadbert until he commits to what robdraven is doing is the levels. And if you don't have the levels, well, the fighter, with its aggressive early HP growth and its inherently high strength, doesn't need a lot of levels to be effective. robdraven has finally rearranged his party. I don't think the eye is going to reliably kill off your other members, though, So he might need to pick a different tile or maybe look for a random encounter if he wants to start whittling them down and just get solo experience. Chadbert, by the way, joins him in Earth Cave. So this is looks like he made it a high priority check after Sarda to come here and look at the spike tiles. And suddenly, deja vu, we're in the same place in lockstep. robdraven stepping over one tile to the metal slimes to hopefully dan off his top 3 characters.
Yeah, and these are 2 really great grinds to have access to, especially when your black belt has black magic, has copies of fire. You've got the eyes on one side and you've got the Montreal slimes on the other. You're in pretty good shape.
Montreal slimes. If you're rooting for Team Montreal, you want them to grind this tile. But no, the real purpose of this is get a little experience on the way, but really kill characters. And 2 of them went down for robdraven, so that's perfect. I think his black belt is both his characters, but his black belt in particular is up to 20. So just about to hit that threshold where I think it'll be one-shotting this eye. So yeah, let's see if Chadbert follows the same game plan. The black belt's on bottom, so it looks like that's what it's going to be. And I should call attention quickly to the raid from SpeedGaming 4. Thank you all for joining us. 105 people have come in here just in time to see these 2 runners diverge in very different paths, yet come into sync in the Hall of Giants in the Earth Cave, where the shuffled A-side tiles have led them to a mix of eye fights and slime fights.
Yeah, and it's a bit of a 1 if by air, 2 if by sea situation where Chadbert has found the floater and has flown here pretty much directly from the desert, whereas robdraven found this the hard way, sailing around, has a fair bit of his own exploration done, and it's really anyone's race at this point. robdraven with the grind advantage, and Chadbert maybe with a few extra checks done. So Chadbert continuing on, of course, not having as big of a dependence on getting super high levels with this fighter-centric party, lots of black casters. robdraven, on the other hand, is going to need to go to at least level 32 on that black belt in order to do anything with this seed. Be interesting to see if he goes any higher, but with the eye, solo eye, it could take a while.
Yeah, the one thing that I'm thinking is maybe a slight missed opportunity here, or maybe not the same assessment of the characters that I would make, is that having this 3 black caster party where the black belt incidentally has temper makes me think, oh, that party is really, really good at quickly scaling up the damage on a knight and getting me to chew through fiends in a round or 2. In concert with the other stuff we discussed earlier, gear and all that, I would have been thinking knight. But the grinds now, it's like there's this tug of war, this mental tug of war. Like, these are both good battle plans. What's going to secure you the victory? Chadbert's trying to lock a spot in the brackets without having to go through those grueling play-in races. And it's just like, what's the winning play? It's so hard to think when the pressure's on.
It really is, and I think that this is probably, you couldn't ask for a much better textbook example of how balanced it is, at least with this flag set. It's probably going to come down to personal preference because you've got that extra time spent grinding that robdraven is doing. On the other hand, Rob is going to be just powering through Topher and finishing it a lot faster. So it's, what do you feel better about? Do you feel better about having a diverse party with access to a lot of different things and armor and so on? Or do you just want to make all of your decision making early on, find your grind, and then just hold A for the rest of the seed?
Chadbert, by the way, continuing to build his Fiend lead, is going to take on Lich here, who should die in a round or 2, and light the second orb with that water orb already in tow. Rob is just on the grind, 4766 XP per eye, going on to Punch. Punch is now at level, I think I just saw like 26 flash on the screen. Hang on. Fade coming out from Chadbert is going to finish off Lich, so that's 2 orbs for Chadbert. Halfway done with the sort of boss progression that leads us to the end. And actually, robdraven is at 30, so that's a really respectable level. I would be tempted to cut things short here for Rob and in a sort of 32 or low 30s grind as opposed to going all the way up. The only reason I say that is because two black casters in the party with lots of temper charges means that the black belt doesn't need to carry the whole thing on his own. But the downside of that is, if a nuke comes out from one of the fiends and all your mages wipe, the black belt might still need to do it all on his own.
Yeah, I think you absolutely do stop at 32 here. But I can understand just you're in this loop of getting 5,000 experience every 15 seconds, not even. So it's pretty hard to stop doing it, but it looks like robdraven may be done with level 32.
Yeah, he's got 420 HP, or at least he did going into this fight. Thankfully, these gargoyles are running away, so he's not going to get caught in some kind of terrible random encounter. Saving, this could be a halfway save or an all the way save. He's unequipping the black belt. Okay, so this is a kind of a half measure, and he's going down to Lich. So what this tells me is he's done with the grind, but he wants to take care of Lich while he's here in the event that he does not find Floater before go mode. This is a actually safer dive than it might sound because the black belt being at the top with level 32 will make enemies run away. They have a lot of low morale on the enemies in Earth Cave, and so they'll lose those rolls to your higher level Light Warrior in the top slot. Okay, Chadbert's plan is, I'm not certain. Came in here after Lich, might have been trying to grind someone and lost the wrong characters. So going back in, let's see how Chadbert kind of redoes this. And I don't think much progress was lost because it really was just, a minute or two ago that he cleared that Earth Orb.
Yeah, I think it was just Chadbert got a little bit phased trying to get his party members knocked down on the slimes and got a little bit more than he bargained for. But you're right, didn't lose much progress, had just saved outside.
Yep, robdraven passed the speed bump in the middle of the Earth Cave. The vampire is technically a mini boss in the vanilla game, but you don't really think much about it in Randomizer. There's just so many ways to kill vampires who can roll as little as less than 100 HP. These wizards, they hit just hard enough to kind of give Rob the business, and they're not quite all running yet, but thankfully they go down to a lit 3. The black belt, this is an especially safe solo black belt dive down to Lich because of the AoE. I think that really secures the plan of not going to revive anyone before finishing Lich.
Yeah, so Chadbert taking a second on this victory screen, maybe making some notes. I wonder what's going on here.
Could be any number of things. Bio break. The timer is still ticking, so unless his emulator froze, might be any number of reasons to break. Meanwhile, I guess we can call the action for robdraven, who gets initiative and immediately runs away from a single Earth. One last troll fight right before the boss, where a troll runs away and then Rob runs away. Fantastic. Chad's stream is not frozen because that timer is still ticking, and both of those have been cropped from the runner's stream. So there may be something else at play here. And yeah, robdraven secures the level, secures the orb. That's his first orb lit at the 50-minute mark. And yes, we will see what Rob's follow-up plan for this is in short order. He's got about half those go mode items, is behind on total dungeons checked, and of course the floater to Chad, but has his grind finished. Chadbert, looks like the emulator was paused. That feels to me like a pause, given that it had stopped moving and then immediately resumed and didn't skip forward. So might have been just the world's fastest bio break. I've done it in official races before too. Sometimes you just gotta go.
Yeah, so Chadbert back on the grind. Rob is heading down to Sea Shrine now. We've already seen this before, so we know what's in store. It's going to be right side item. Going to be interesting to see which strategy that Rob goes with first.
He's checking Oasis, so we know he's still got the vendor item on the mind and will be rewarded with an herb, which robdraven could buy 10 herbs. They're 30,000, could buy 10 of them from all the money he collected from killing eyes.
Right, so Chadbert, on the other hand, heading to Ice Cave now. We've already seen this, and it is a...
It's unfortunate. He's going to get the ruby out of here. He hasn't turned in his bottle, which could have saved him possibly this entire dungeon, because the remaining two things to be found are whatever leads to the white shirt, which could be a fetch quest like a crown, crystal, that sort of thing, slab, and whatever leads to the loot. Those are between Sky and the bottle at this point. I guess slab is going to be somewhere in the middle of all those. Yeah, so Chadbert unfortunately will lose a little bit of time on this ice dive, but for us in chat here and in the booth, that's more drama. We love to see the runners come back to a closer state of play.
Yeah, exactly. This is pretty much just equalizing them, with Chadbert having a little bit of an advantage, having that floater already. This is going to pull the two of them closer. It's going to give us even better of this, the endless black belt versus fighter debate that rages. This is going to be more fuel for that fire.
Yep. We've got some folks in the chat, I know, and in our Discord who've been keeping track of the score between fighter and black belt, sort of heads up in the tournament. But if Chadbert goes into Topher with like a mid-20s party that includes a very useful and offensive black belt, but not one that was ground up solo, and also includes the fighter and wins the race, then who does the victory point go to?
Oh, that's got to be the fighter. It's who your main damage dealer is, I would have to think, which the black belt's not going to be if we're dealing with a level 28 or so.
Yeah, now Chad is also, he's still pre-promotion despite having been in the air and having the tail in hand. Was not swayed to promotion earlier by the XCal +4. Vorpal +5 though, man, that would just be starting to tempt me so much to promote.
Yeah, well, for Rob, it's a little bit different, having already done a grind. But for Chadbert had that information earlier on, it's an easier decision.
Yep, and I like this decision to not clear any further into Ice Cave. Chadbert just needed to get the item and go. Of course, with it being the ruby, it's kind of a wash, but Chad is at least on his way and only spent about 2 minutes in Ice Cave. That was a really quick dive.
Yeah, it was fast, and Chadbert's back up now, probably going to take care of promotion. Looks like that's what we're seeing right now. For Chadbert, it makes complete sense. robdraven, as Chad is pointing out, even if we do see a promotion, could be held off until later simply to get more MDEF. However, I don't think that's going to be... Well, actually, yeah, for robdraven, it has to be the case because that's our main damage dealer anyways. Whereas with Chadbert, we've already got a ribbon, so the fighter's going to be protected either way.
Yep, and also the sooner that you promote this knight, the sooner that you're going to get those levels of life. So important to do it now at 19. You want to get to at least 23 to 25 to get 2 to 3 charges. Those level break points can be also important for the weapons, but I'm not going to calculate those right now. No, actually I am. The Vorpal's going to get a 5th hit at level 27. Anyways, Chadbert probably won't get there, I think, with this game plan, but you at least need to secure a couple of life charges to make Knight Learnable Life useful. robdraven is almost to Kraken here, is on the final floor of the Sea Shrine left. Should be a pretty straightforward kill with some evasion stacking with Temper available and a black belt that's already post 32. Chad is finally in Gaia, so we're going to see what this bottle turns into. Is checking the promotion magic slots there, though I'm not sure why he was in that particular white shop. There's nothing learnable there for red mages or red wizards. Rob is, healing up the party, scared of lobsters, as he rightfully should be.
Yeah, definitely be afraid of lobsters. They're very nasty. One thing I just wanted to say quickly, though, about Chadbert getting to level 27 on the fighter, could go for a play that I like, which is he hasn't done carry yet. So what you can do is you can use the volcano to sort of get your light warriors low on health, get them killed off easily, and then get the fighter all the levels you need in that earth tile grind.
Yeah, or actually, in this case, with no runner having done Sky yet, you could do what the play you recommended, but then take like a 2-person walking grind up Sky. That's another viable play. Either way, robdraven with this Kraken fight now, which is going a little bit laggy, but I think we're seeing, yeah, mostly, okay, just pure damage strats, Fade, Lit 3, which is the weakness of Kraken coming out from the Black Mages. Yeah, the fight's already over. robdraven secures a second orb at the 57-minute mark, so the orbs are tied up. Orbs are tied up, Chad is in the air and promoted, Rob has levels. What does it all mean? Chad is getting some gold bracelets here. Really, really powerful endgame body armor for the party while he translates his slab, so that's a really efficient sort of play to just whiz by that armor shop when it's convenient. The slab, at this point, I can still coin flip whether it's going to be this required loot or if it's going to lead to the white shirt and have the other piece in Sky.
Yeah, well, either way, it's going to be useful for Chadbert, considering that it's not a big loss making these checks in terms of the time. Now, of course, if you get the loot in the slab turn-in, you won't have to spend any extra time in Sky checking boxes, and that could be the main huge thing. Just want to take a second, though, and chide chat for all of this love for the Vorpal. I mean, yes, it is a Vorpal +5. Keep in mind, though, we do have an XCal +4, and for my money, that's the better weapon.
Yeah, there's a really common strategy for even classic runners of FFR going back years, where if you have an XCal and a Vorpal, you ride that XCal up through Tiamat, where you're still getting the elemental advantage against the bosses. robdraven with a Sixth Sense clears this floor first before Mermaids and actually gets the cube and can immediately warp out. So saves himself a ton of time from having to check, extra 12 boxes in Mermaids. But back to the weapons, XCal has a bonus all the way up through Tiamat, and then Chaos has no weaknesses, no type, and higher absorb than any of the other bosses. That's where you switch to the Vorpal. Slab leads to white shirt, so both these runners are going to have to clear Sky. If the loot is in a funky spot like middle of Sky 2, there could be some variance in how quickly each of the runners find it.
Yeah. So Chad is asking if we can change the 4 heroes in mid-game. It is possible to do if Tavern mode is enabled in the flag set. And what that'll do is you can go to the different clinics and they'll give you an option to hire a character of a different class in each town. In this particular flag set that we're running here, this is the spring tournament. We don't have Tavern mode enabled. So the party they start with is the party they're going to use throughout the game.
Yep. And so that's why party selection, a very important part of practice, rehearsing flag sets, reading the metagame, reading your opponent. And there are ways to mitigate, the differences between what you and your opponent can run. There are options to draft in this tournament. There are options to take forced party members that neither of the runners pick, that those are just chosen randomly by the randomizer. In this case, though, we did go for open party selection, each runner feeling like taking what they wanted give them the best chance to win.
Yeah, so Chadbert getting started on what can potentially be the longest item hunt in the game, having to go through the sky looking for items. And we've got, is that Badman with poison? Not something you like to see.
Yeah, we have one ribbon, and there's that Aegis shield too, so our elemental resistances are at least decent, and scripts are starting to sort of fade, not totally fade from relevancy, but they're going to stop being game breakers and just be more like annoyances. robdraven making the move towards skies, so we're really seeing some runner convergence in ways that I didn't totally expect in the seed. Rob has done a lot of stuff by boat, and then ended up in the same place as Chad at the same time, in this case Sky, and previously we saw them both grinding Earth. Sandwiches, a little late for those, but we could have had a sandwich consumption station maybe here in the desert if either runner had come here earlier.
Yeah, so this is really interesting. Rob has been doing this with the ship, as you mentioned, and has most of the required items, is going to end up getting the loot in here, but interestingly doesn't have the key. Now, we saw that really early on.
That was
the key
Ordeals.
was actually in Ordeals. Yep. So that could be one that Rob doesn't see for a while, just depending on what decisions Rob makes after this check.
Yeah, I think being on this particular part of the map, like I could totally see Ordeals being the next play. I'm actually surprised it wasn't the previous play before he checked the Onrak continent, because if he'd routed Ordeals to Onrak continent to here, he would have just sort of galaxy brained a floaterless go mode with a black belt, which is perfect because the black belt doesn't need to get in the air and promote. But yeah, so robdraven at best will be go mode -1 coming out of this dungeon, while once Chadbert finds, it's going to be a crown or a crystal first, an intermediary, but it will eventually lead to the loot. Chadbert will be in go mode.
Yeah, so Chadbert coming up against a Wyvern and Warren encounter. We're going to see what's here at this trap tile. It is just garbage. It's the Ghost Party pack from the Ice Cave. And they're both at about the same spot. I wonder who's going to finish faster. robdraven does have that big black belt.
Yeah, robdraven's a couple rooms behind, and so I think given a relatively similar clear speed, Chad should stay in the lead for this particular dungeon. Black belts don't usually start to really snowball that quickly ahead of other parties until the black belt is like post 40, and suddenly you're getting initiative like every battle, and you're getting free runs off, and so on and so on. They both just have to slog through this full clear, and it'll really depend on where that fetch quest lands. Question in chat, where was the key? The key was in Ordeals. I believe it was directly in Ordeals without a fetch quest.
So Chadbert finding some good armor, that's going to, not that the money is really an issue here, but that's going to save some money and time versus robdraven, who has bought all of that. More interestingly, it's going to be, as you said before, does anybody skip the Sky 2 and come back to it, and does that end up being where the item is?
Yep. Meanwhile, Chadbert, I alluded to this earlier that you could have 2 characters alive. Is he going to stick with it? No. 3 characters, though. Okay. This I like. Chadbert is finally settled on the promoted knight for sure. The black belt is staying dead after having been knocked out, I believe, by the badmen. So Chadbert wants as many levels as possible on the knight. That's magic charges, that's strength, hit percent, HP, and so on, that it's gaining every level.
Yeah, and that's one of the advantages of the knight versus the black belt, is that you can pretty much just walk and grind it up to a level that's going to be good enough to be doing 6 hits, going to have a bunch of charges of life, and be super helpful in that end game.
Ooh, an opal bracelet -2, actually not enough better than a gold bracelet, if even better than a gold bracelet, to be worth picking up for Chadbert. Let me count real quick. That's 30 absorb, and the gold +4s have 32. In fact, it's worse. So yeah, Chad rightfully leaving behind an opal bracelet, which is not something you see very much, but it just happened to cross the threshold and be worse than gold bracelets this seed.
Yeah, so our tracker, Burt Reynolds, pointing out that the loot is going to be behind 2 fetch quests. As you said earlier, Cheesenator, there's going to be some intermediaries there. That's going to be slow. Look at this, though. Masmune -3. That is a very nice weapon. Maybe better than the Xcal +4, actually.
Not quite. We're in the territory where like the Xcal is bonused enough and the Maza is cursed enough that it's worse. This is something that you pass on to like your 3rd or 4th character, because the Vorpal +5 also a more exciting sword. What you really lose with rolling down on weapons is the crit rate. That's significantly impaired. On the Maza -3, it goes from 20 down to 11, whereas that Xcal is at 22 crit rate right now.
Yeah, well, I have to go back to my Katana +4. I mean, that's where I'd be hanging my hat if I had a thief, but unfortunately we don't. So we've got no shortage of other options to look at. As you're saying, a Maza -3 being your 3rd option is not the best. As Chadbert finds that intermediate crystal in a good spot, we don't have to check Sky 2.
Yeah, speaking of crystals and so forth, robdraven is on the Bridge of Destiny, but doesn't have a crystal marked, and I really don't think that I saw him clear the chests that would get it for him. Is he gambling? We could be in the territory where robdraven, being this far into the game, not in go mode, with a lot of checks remaining at the 106 mark. Oh, he got crystal and it's not yet marked. Okay, I was about to go down a dangerous theoretical road there where Rob might have been gambling, but I can see the crystal in his inventory. Yep. Great. So, pulling Tiamat, and Chadbert's going to come up right behind, and we're going to have simultaneous Tiamat fights. So robdraven did actually pull ahead, and just has the 2 light warriors up, because of course nobody alive here is able to revive anyone.
Yeah, no, and I like this robdraven making use of that Saber spell. It's not much different than Temper, but is a little bit better and a little bit faster given that it self-targets, so I like seeing that here. Tiamat is not going down without a fight, but the black belt's hitting hard enough, and robdraven gets it down with 2 big swings.
Yep, goes up to level 34 on the back end. That's great too. But the Thunder into Blizzard did give me a little bit of a scare because Black Belt was suddenly into lethal range. Meanwhile, Chadbert, what is this Xcal doing? 7 hits, 622. That's beautiful. Knight does it for Chadbert, so just 30 seconds or so behind. Rob has also lit his 3rd orb. But yeah, wow. Airship versus ship, right? If this had just been loot directly and all the other fetch quests had been, say, blocking the white shirt, it would have been maybe a different conversation, but it's going to take a while to convert this loot.
Yeah, now, and I wonder what other checks in the inner sea Rob has left. I guess given that there could be so many potential ones, it does make sense to come this long way around. I was going to suggest, though, with the crystal, maybe that could have been an use of the Northern Matoya dock.
Yeah, Rob, of course, doesn't know what it would lead to. The one problem with North docking to Matoya there is that with so many fetch quests remaining, like, you might get something that wants you to wrap around to the other side of the inner sea, and then you're like, oh god. But so Rob is catching up on fetch quests. Chadbert has just gone straight into the volcano. He'll finish off his last couple of fetches here. Afterwards, it'll be crystal to crown to loot, but he's going to light his 4th orb before then. Reminder, by the way, way back in the day, if you all remember, 45 minutes ago, robdraven was here in the volcano, made a gutsy play to fight Carry, didn't pay off, and wiped out. So that was, a time loss that it's not water under the bridge. It might come back to matter because these runners are in theory going to be in Topher simultaneously, albeit maybe at different ends of Topher.
Yeah, you're not wrong. And we did ask that question, is this going to end up being something that matters? I think the bigger thing, or I thought at the time that the bigger thing would not seeing that 2 zombie D grind, but we ended up finding a better one in Earth, so it didn't end up being an issue for robdraven.
Rob about to get the news about the lazy dwarves. Adamant turns into TNT. TNT turns into floaters. So he will be getting the good bad news. The good news of I finally have floater. The bad news of it's an hour and 9. Chadbert here has pulled Carry, is coming out with a fade that only does 101. A fast that does come out in time before the fighter swings for 710 damage and just dunks on Carry. So 4 orbs lit. This would be a good moment to mention another not oft talked about flag in the tournament is there's a buff to elemental weapons. The Xcal is getting an extra, not plus 10, but plus 20 attack per swing on any, or I guess per hit calculation, but whatever, plus 20 attack per swing on anything that has a type or a weakness. So Xcal, really, really good stuff. In addition to the blessing on everything in the game besides chaos and a handful of enemies.
Yeah, so robdraven doing those checks in dwarves, looking to warp out, but seeing that all his light warriors were down, has to huff it out the long way, goes and takes care of business in Corneria, and is now headed over to light his fire orb.
Yeah, thankfully, Rob is going to be able to get into go mode and finish his fire orb all within the inner sea, so it's not as bad as it might seem, flight time wise once he gets in the air with this floater. But he has to prioritize the crystal that he picked up. If he prioritizes the other latent fetch quests, like the bottle he's been sitting on since checking sages at 8 minutes, it will all be time loss. So he's got to do inner sea first.
So Chadbert's coming around. Finally, we get to see that Astos was holding that loot all along as robdraven goes to the desert and gets in the air.
Oh, Rob still needs the key. Gosh, I keep forgetting. He's on the edge of being so close, but there is a gap. Unfortunately, Ordeals is actually going to be the biggest gap between the two. Yeah, because he's got to go the long way, parking the ship on the eastern side of the northern continent. Okay, well, I wanted this race to be closer and more dramatic, but it's looking like, barring a Topher that just eviscerates a fighter party, that Chadbert is going to have at least a 1 Topher dive lead.
Yeah, and Chadbert is very well prepared. We do have basically all of the spells that you might want to have. We have all the gear that you might want to have. the biggest, if you could say that there's a weakness here, is only having one ribbon. But even that, I mean, it's something that should be okay for this party. His black belt is going to have a pretty high natural MDef, and we've got white magic on the fighter, which will have the ribbon.
Mm-hmm. So benchmark to keep in mind for later is that Chadbert entered Topher at 112. If he has to redive, of course, that gives time for robdraven to catch up, but we'll know exactly how far behind Rob is based on when he enters Topher, if he even does, before Chad finishes off the seed. This dive, it will require some buffing per fiend fight, right? It's not going to be like each fight is free, like it might be with, fast black belt one shot. So we'll see.
Right, so Rob taking carry on trying to get a little bit of revenge for that first wipe. Firing some ice 3s, those are going to do okay damage, but the real show is this black belt here, hitting for 458, and carry goes down as Chadbert enters the middle part of Topher.
Mm-hmm. The loot changes position depending on what flavor of menu you use. It used to be always in the top left in the old system, but now most people are using what's called auto sort that puts the heal potions in the top left, and the loot, who knows, it's just scattered somewhere else in your menu. I always fumble around these days trying to get my way into Topher.
Yeah, I'm the same way. For me, it's the loot and the rod. I'm always jumping around, and I have a tendency to go for the rod instead of the loot in Topher, just because, I don't know, that's the muscle memory.
Yeah, Chadbert, he's been ambushed. These Kermaduses, they hit so many times. What if they had a dun-dun-dun-dun death touch? No, they don't. Seems like we're safe.
Yeah, somebody mentioned in the Discord a little while back that death touch has been modified. So it used to be something that was super problematic because anything that had multiple hits could basically be a problem for you. It has been nerfed somewhat. Some point along the line with the randomizer, they made the death touch be countered by pro rings. So now you don't see it as often, because often at midway through the seed, you're going to be picking up pro rings for everybody. And then at that point, if you encounter an enemy that has the death touch, after that you won't know. But back before that change got made, it could be a real game-changing occurrence.
Mm-hmm. 556 damage, no buffs from the fighter there, and then the red mage with the Vorpal +5 finishes it off. That's a really squishy Lich, as Lich is usually, but also it's nice to see Chadbert not have to expend any extra resources on the first Fiend refight. He's scooting his way here in through the fire floor and is going to be coming up on carry momentarily. robdraven has renamed his loot. It's the organ. That is not a bodily organ. That is a instrument. And think of a large piano type thing that would sit in a cathedral or whatever. Don't know how Astos was holding an entire organ. Loot is much easier to pass from light warrior to light warrior.
Well, you know how it is with RPG logic. You can fit an absurd amount of items in your magical bag of holding +4.
Mm-hmm. Anyway, so fast coming out on the fighter who is in front, but we've got so much melee power here. Even the black belt's going to be chipping in with that Maza -3 for not irrelevant damage. I mean, there's 79, 50 something from the first round. The Vorpal's coming out swinging, but the Excal really doing the meat of the work here, and that's over 800 damage on 10 hits.
Yeah, so robdraven getting some bad news about the slab. That's going to turn into the white shirt if he continues to chase it. So not the key he's looking for, unfortunately, but here we are in Ordeal, so in the right spot to be.
Mm-hmm. robdraven is on the path to go mode. Not hungry for steak right now. Don't blame him. He's already consumed so much. I guess eyes are kind of a delicacy too this game. Kraken is been pulled by Chadbert, who is deciding what the best plan. No, actually, that's just a stream freeze. I was going to say Chadbert is taking a while to decide, but if you can notice, the timer is also not moving. So this is just short stream delay, and we'll see the result of this Kraken fight and possibly what he chose after the slideshow catches up. Okay, cool. So it was Fade, the Knight was swinging, the Knight isn't back for extra safety. The Black Belt didn't do much there with that swing. Ice 3 comes out for a respectable 94 from the Black Mage. Gonna go back to temper strats though. Didn't feel like enough damage was coming out of the X-Cal. The Fade, 258. That's really nice to see. Finishes off Kraken. So Chadbert, again, still has not expended a lot of resources and is up to the final Fiend refight here on the air floor.
Yeah, we'll talk about a tense place for a fight to be frozen at. Kraken 2. But here we are now on Tiamat, and we're going to see how this goes. Looking like some pretty garden variety strats. We've got White Shirt, Fast, and Temper, but look at that. We've got Crack coming out. It dropped before the Fast did, so we're going to have to do it the slow way. Let's see what kind of damage we can get out of this buffed fighter. Chadbert putting up a wall, and we're going to get some more Invis shirts. That makes sense. And we're going to see a swing here coming up. That's just a backup swing by the Black Belt, doing some chip damage for about 100 damage. And we get another wall on the fighter. So just making sure that we get that protection up. Continuing to bonk, continuing to saber. We're going with the 2 damage dealer strats. Here's a swing from the fighter finally, but it's only 190 damage, and Tiamat's got nuclear. So this fight's not going to be over soon. We've done about 300-400 damage. How do you think we're doing, Cheese?
I think we're okay, especially with this Cure 3 coming out. The Knight is a respectably high health total. Only thing that could scare right here would be like a high roll nuke. You've got, I think that might be a missed menu. Yeah, going on to the dead characters. So maybe some nerfs coming out from Chadbert with the menus in this fight with that double wall as well, but gets through Tiamat, has life charges. The reason for the wall being on the fighter, of course, is that with the Red Mage wearing the ribbon, the fighter doesn't have complete resistances, Crack being a thing that can beat you through Aegis Shield and so on. Now we'll see if there's some final adjustments here to Chadbert's game plan. You might want to switch the ribbon onto your fighter. I think that's the most recommended play. We don't know, however, what Chadbert is doing because we've gotten caught in a bit of a stream slideshow. So robdraven has entered Topher, though, at the 119 mark, and Chadbert about to pull Chaos. The final gear check here shows that the ribbon is moving to the fighter, who's going to be able to equip both that and, well, the Power Gauntlet would have only been like 2 absorb anyways. Pulling Chaos, the final fight, 2,000 years in the past. Chaos can have 2,000 to 3,000 HP on this flag set, and we're going with all of the buffs. Power Gauntlet on the fighter, Fast on the fighter, Invis 2 for the party. Well, it would have happened, except for that the Red Mage got stunned by the Stun Touch Chaos. Ouch. We hope that touch doesn't come out on our main melee carries. The Black Belt is sabering up as backup damage, and I really like that game plan. Ruse for the fighter. You really want to not take those physical hits from Chaos because, especially with the paralysis coming in, that could be the end of your run. But all these light wars contributing something to the battle. Tornado comes out. I think that's going to wipe the Red Mage unless it rolls low. It does. Red Mage has kind of served a purpose already, got off at least 1 buff, but is down. The Black Mage is going to have to take care of the rest of the way. The Knight is doing a lot of damage, 928. If you get just 3 rounds of that, plus the Black Belt did 755. Are you sure this one's going to count for the fighter if he wins? The Black Belt here does 88. Okay, so the fighter has done around 1,000 damage, and the Black Belt not quite cutting it. So that's it. Chadbert GG has finished with an official race time of 1 hour, 20 minutes, and 36 seconds. Beats robdraven, gets to 2-1 in the pod. Get out your GGs in chat.
Yeah, what a fantastic fight. Chadbert showing us a couple of things there. Using that backup Black Belt as, well, really kind of been a jack of all trades for this seed. We saw it using Black Magic, we saw it being a primary tank at one point, and finally fulfilling a role as a backup melee dealer. So yeah, really kind of showing us the whole spectrum of possibilities there from Chadbert.
And we've also just been joined in the booth. Hello. Chadbert? If you're speaking, we cannot hear you yet, but we are joined in the booth by our winner.
Yeah, Chadbert probably taking a minute to get some technical difficulty sorted there. We saw him come off mute, but could be set to a low volume or something.
Mm-hmm. robdraven, by the way, passed Lich, so is scooting through Topher here. With a high-level black belt, you're not going to be too worried, especially with the safety blanket of that white mage. It looks to be on the same exact encounter table too as Chadbert, because you got that fire encounter in the same location on this floor.
Yeah,
I think I fixed it.
Oh, hey, there you are. What's up, GG?
Thank you, Gigi. And I apparently forgot that I put on push to talk.
Gotcha. Well, welcome to the booth. You are the winner. You've made this pod substantially more dramatic by beating Rob, who was 2-0, and bringing the two of you to a tie at 2-1.
It's a very competitive pod. Everybody in the pod is a good runner. So I'm just super stoked to be actually make it to brackets. Make it through this pod.
That's a great feeling. For those in the chat who don't know, the tournament has a 64-person bracket. There were 80 some odd entries, so while nothing is very certain, getting 2 wins is generally enough to make the cut for that top 64. So yeah, sure. Why don't we throw some questions at you if you're feeling mentally prepared to answer? The first thing I wanted to say is just, when did you finally decide that we're gonna do a night, we're gonna promote, and that's gonna be our primary damage dealer?
I was thinking about it before Earth, and when I saw their eyes, I was like, all right, let me see if I can do it. But I'm like, I can't get the party members down. Saw the other trap tile. I'm like, okay, I might be able to get party members down. I couldn't get the right party members down. I'm like, and then I had to go to the restroom really badly. So it was just like, during that 2-minute break, I was like, I'm just going to go fighter. Just going to go fighter strats.
That's fair. Fighter just takes less time to get online, and you had so many valuable pieces. We saw from early in the seed, you picked up an Excal +4. robdraven picked up a Vorpal +5. Later, you swapped places, and you were able to pick it up as well. Just about everything you could ask for. I think maybe you didn't have a defense sword, but like you had everything else.
I didn't have defense, but I did have access to ruse and life, so it was just even more leaning towards just go fighter strats and not worry about grind.
Mm-hmm. By the way, a little spooky fast coming out from Kraken there right before robdraven's black belt takes it down. You never want to see Kraken cast fast. So there was some other interesting routing that happened in your seed. You were pretty efficient in how you kind of moved through the world. You didn't bounce back and forth too much across the map, except I think the one time where you got a key from Ordeals, decided to go use that before going to the water continent. Totally understandable. And you were the first in the air by a substantial margin. You made an aggressive play into Marsh. I really liked a lot of what I saw you do to sort of not waste travel time.
Sorry, I missed the question. A little bit hard of hearing.
That's fine. I'll make a more direct question. How did you decide to make some of the routing choices you did? For example, you went to Marsh before Elfland. You went back to the Inner Sea after Ordeals. Just kind of what's going through your head when you're making those choices?
Okay, so in the practice, I've been doing Marsh a lot, and it's generally safe. It wasn't the day, but because the Bones had Blizzard, I believe it was. But yeah, I just was like, I'll do Marsh and then go out to Ordeals, and I just didn't get to Crescent Lake until very late.
Yes, and we'll follow up on that in just a moment here. robdraven is pulling up to Chaos, healing the entire party, rearranging the party so the black belt is safely in back, as with the white mage. So we're going to be doing probably fast temper, evasion stacking, evasion stacking and power gauntlet. So all buffs all day for the first round. Double fast. I actually like this. The fast is substantially more important than a temper right now, especially since you got that power gauntlet. And if the nuke comes out first round and you lose both black mages, you could be in bad shape if you don't get a single fast off. But now it's all temper all day. Invis 2, no, actually wall coming out because the black belt is not 42, 43, so still vulnerable to spells and scripts without having a ribbon on. Really solid game plan here for the final boss from robdraven, who does 10 hits for 1300 damage. This chaos is not long for the world. If these two temper numbers come out before the final hit, we could see just this be the last round. And indeed, 14 hits for 1681. That's an enormous black belt punch. Get out your GGs in chat for robdraven, who also raced the hell out of this seed.
Yeah, so we talked about it before, the difference between going fighter and going black belt, and robdraven showing that the black belt definitely does make for an easier final run through. Coming in only 6 minutes behind Chadbert, it's been a close race, and we're joined in the booth now by Rob. Rob, you just finished. How you feeling?
How do I feel? I felt pretty good, except for that stupid volcano dive that I did.
Yeah, we talked about that, and we've seen that work for runners in this early pod stage matchups. Some people will go for carry early on, just gambling to get it down sooner rather than later. Unfortunately, luck did turn against you, but you did come away with that. Actually, you didn't check for the volcano armory, did you?
I checked. I found that Vorpal +5 and I chuckled, and then I wiped and didn't bother going back.
Right. So it was really interesting to watch you and Chadbert play this race. If you go back and you watch it, it's really interesting because you both did such different things. You were able to pull out the floater. Well, it took you a lot longer to find the floater than it did, Chadbert, and that ended up making a difference. But really, there was also the volcano wipe to throw in there. There was the grind of the black belt to throw in there. There were a lot of different things that you could point at. What do you think made the biggest difference? Would you say it was your volcano wipe that probably made the biggest difference in terms of the performance?
I think so, definitely. That like diving volcano, hitting the armory, then leaving housing, going back, trying to go for carry and wiping on carry. That was just. That right there could have easily been the 6 minutes difference. Like, if I hadn't done that dive, this could have been a whole lot closer of a race.
Yeah, absolutely. It's also the mental setback, right? That affects your future decisions. Like, oh no, I just took a time loss now. So in your case, when you took that time loss, did it affect you and you maybe played more conservatively afterwards or routed any differently?
To be honest, I actually played more aggressively, it seemed like. Once I found the eye grind, I was like, okay, I'm grinding to 32, and then I'm just gonna go. I'm just go. I know I'm behind.
I like your decision to take the black belt and just go straight down to Lich with the black belt's levels and AoE. You didn't need to revive your other party members.
Yeah, no. The moment I had 32, I was like, the moment I got onto Earth and committed to the grind, I was like, I'm not leaving here until Lich is dead. It was just a matter of how long it was going to take me to get the levels so I can kill Lich. I think the hardest part of that grind was just killing off my other party members.
Yep. Chadbert had some problems with that as well. Had the wrong party members die, and then I think a brief wipe while trying to set up a grind, which ended up influencing his decision to roll with his fighter instead of his black belt.
Now, I will say that I've seen some of the weapons and armor that was coming down. I was kind of like, oh, this could be a fighter seed. So I'm like, well, we'll just have to hope that whatever I ran into and got my butt kicked on it, hope that Chad ran into the same stuff.
Yeah, well, certainly the Blizzard Bones caught you both a little bit early. There were some overworld wipes that I saw, like Mad Ponies are bad, Ghouls are bad, but I don't think that enemy spells and scripts were really the story of this seed, especially since Ribbon was secured relatively early.
Yeah, what I was gonna say, I didn't find a single one. I just kind of ran.
Chad, where was your ribbon?
What was it?
Your ribbon. You had one for your party.
I had a. Let's see, what was it that we were looking for? I had a ribbon. I had an Aegis shield. I had a dragon armor -3, and then I had the weapons. I had a +5 Vorpal, a +4 Excal, and a -3 Masa.
Yeah, and that -3 Maza came in clutch. Like, your black belt contributed real damage in Temple of Fiends, but with a Maza.
Yep, and I did find pro rings for everybody at some point.
So I think this one does go down on the score sheet as a fighter victory in the head-to-head matchup, but it was just really interesting to see your black belt contribute across fiend fights something like 1,200 or 1,500 damage in total.
Yeah, the spells really lined up for a fighter seat this time. It's the bruise, life, the wall, all accessible by the knight. So it really is just kind of screamed it. I just took a little bit for me to listen to it.
Yep. Did for either of you, did the blessings on the classes influence the parties you took, as this was an open party selection?
I would say that the blessings, they didn't necessarily change anything on which ones I did, but I was just like, yeah, I'm definitely taking the black belt, definitely, taking the red mage and black mage because of the enhanced vitality. And I was like, I'm going to take the fighter just to have a good second melee, just in case I need it. And it
Rob,
worked out.
Rob, same question to you.
Yeah, so I actually, it did influence it a little bit. I actually was going through and I see fighter strength, and I'm going, okay, that's all right. Then I see black belt ninja skills, and I just start laughing. I'm like, okay, something's telling me to just keep running, because I was actually telling myself I should go fighter just like, since I'd already won with black belt the other two. I was like, well, I should go fighter, and then I see the ninja spells, and I'm like, nope, I'm gonna go ninja. I'm gonna go with the ninja spells.
Mm-hmm.
And then the mages are just the 80 hit points on the white mage was really nice, and then the extra vitality. Even though the red mage had the black belt vitality, I figured that I wasn't going to be grinding my black mage, like grinding the mages up too high, and so I don't know how. I think between the two is kind of a wash.
Cool. Well, we are a couple weeks off yet from the start of the brackets, but it is time to start thinking about them with all three of your pod races down for each of you. Are you going to switch and stop playing so many of the pod pickup races and start to shift to those bracket pickup races here soon?
Definitely for me. I mean, I actually don't get it. I actually have been able to get in a lot of these pickup races that have been going on, but I definitely going to have to start practicing the brackets, because start of the brackets, that bridge goes away, so that's going to be an interesting little bit of fun that could change the course of things.
Oh yeah, lots of loops will be thrown. Chadbert?
Yeah, I'm definitely going to start practicing the bracket flags starting tonight. If for some reason we have to do the plane race, well, I'll deal with it then.
Yeah, we would have had to, I think, have like almost all the pods have three-way ties at 2 and 1 for 2 and 1s to need to play the play-in race. So I'm pretty sure you're both secure at this point, but it was not mathematically impossible. We've got our full pod here, Pod Pede, in the booth tonight. Guardian Marcus being the backup tracker to Burt Reynolds. Shout out to both of them for helping us out with the broadcast tonight. The two of us have our matchup tomorrow, 4 p.m. Eastern, and then Pod Pede will be resolved. I'm looking forward to taking my shot to potentially tie up with the two of you, but Guardian Marcus, who had a second place finish in the Duckling Derby, has a lot to say about that, so it'll be a good contest that I hope you all tune into. Why don't we move on to final thoughts, unless Rock Solid, you had any more questions for the runners tonight?
No, I think let's move ahead and get it wrapped up.
All right, cool. So we'll start with tonight's winner, Chadbert. Anything else you'd like to say to the broadcast, to the fans?
I want to say GG to robdraven, my opponent, for a good race. And I want to thank everybody manning the booths behind the scenes. Y'all are all doing a good job. And thank Danny especially for basically making all of this happen in the background. Looking forward to brackets. And thank the fans too. Do that.
Awesome. Great to hear. robdraven, final thoughts. If you're still with us, Rob?
Oh. Well, I was off. I got streamer load still on. So yeah, GG Chad. You played a heck of a race and you beat me. I'm glad. I'm glad to see you in there. Thank you, Cheese and Rock Solid for coming, and Bert and Guardian Marcus for tracking. Can't wait to see the Guardian Marcus cheese race tomorrow. Everybody, please tune into that one. That one's going to be good. Even though I will say, cheese, nothing against you, but I am rooting for Guardian Marcus only because I'd like to see all four of us have a shot at the brackets.
Yeah, I mean, there are a lot of fun ways this can still play out. I'm a biased party, so I'll make no further comment. But thank you all for being here tonight, and I want to thank chat for engaging, participating in this race, asking great questions. Thank the organizers. Thank my co-commentator, Rock Solid here. It was fun tonight. We got links in chat for you to follow the runners, to join the Discord. Rock Solid, why don't you take us out?
Sure thing, Cheese. Well, look, it's been another fantastic race, and we've got lots and lots more coming for you right down the pipe. If you're interested, right now we've got races going on RPG Limit Break in particular has one going on, and throughout the weekend and all next week there's going to be races just about every night as everyone tries to secure their position in this particular spring tournament. So it's been a pleasure to call this race, and it's been a pleasure to have you all along with us. Make sure to join the Discord if you haven't already and you're interested in this game. Thanks to our hosts at SpeedGaming. But that's going to do it for us tonight. So I'm RockSolid84, joined in the booth by Cheesinator. And until next time, folks, keep your heads up and don't forget to go fast.